All right. Welcome, welcome. If you're new here, I'm so glad you came. I hope you find this to be a really good use of your time. If you've been here before, I love seeing your smiling faces or names on the screen coming back to learn just really great tools to help you in your role and to help your team in your law firm. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos on legal technology talk. So, this is the last part in our series. And Beth is going to conclude that today to wrap it up with sustaining. And then I'll just say again for anybody that popped in, summer we go 2 times a month for the open coaching. Our next one is the Friday after Labor Day. So once you do that, then we're back to every week. So definitely mark your calendars every Friday to hop in here. You're going to find it to be, I think, beneficial in managing your role. So I'm going to turn it over to Beth.
Okay, hello everyone. Nice to see all of your smiling faces. Um, all right, so today we're going to talk about sustaining. We talked about the necessary environment and building that culture, and honestly, that's the easy part. You can put all that in place, and the hardest part is keeping that momentum. So let's see how we can keep that momentum going through all of this. And sustaining is the area where most firms fail. Sometimes it's a New Year resolution. We're going to focus on improvement. And then around about April, the workload gets larger and it becomes a back burner item. And then next year, you start again. And we wouldn't do that with marketing, although sometimes some firms do. But somehow we tend to do that with our improvements. So let's explore some ways to prevent that from happening and to build a strong continuous improvement path for your firm. And there's five different ways to make your improvement sustainable, five different keys that you need to have so it becomes sustainable. One is leadership. It's always about leadership. Leadership's very important to this. There's two types of leaderships, though, to this portion. One is your firm leadership. Um, your firm leadership needs to be bought in. They need to understand this is not something to be set aside. If you don't have that support from the top, it's easy to slide back into the status quo. But a lot of that is really getting that buy-in at the beginning and also having that open communication that you can say, hey, this is starting to slip, and be able to point that out to them that they don't get mad at you for that. Um, and then there is the improvement leadership. That is always and possibly almost never the firm leadership. Sometimes you can have a COO in charge of your continuous improvement, and that works well. That is really what they're focusing on. And the improvement leaderships are the ones that take the bull by the horns and they keep pressing on and making things better every day. Their main goal is to move forward. They're key to guiding the team on to better things. They are your visionaries. They're the ones that really want to keep moving forward and not stagnate. And then you can have the best leadership in the world and not have staff engagement and empowerment, and it just falls by the wayside. So we all know we need to listen to each other and value the input. Making that happen in real life is a little more difficult. So let's look at client service specifically and intake, specifically intake for a second. They're the 911 operators of the firm. They're the ones that have that first initial contact with that person. And the thing with 911 operators is a lot of times they're in that moment, they're doing what they need to do and all of that. And then they hand it off. And they don't really know what happens with that. And so a lot of times giving that feedback to them and being able for them to be able to see that in a real time is very helpful to them. You can you may talk about performance in their job and they may be curious about how things turn out. Their main focus is getting clients into a consultation. But how it turns out is also important to them, or it should be. And it's really being able to look at that. and all of your staff engagement. Anytime that you have staff that are engaged and empowered to say things, it encourages ownership of their position and accountability. And it also allows you to have a collaborative culture where, yes, this is John's job, and John and I do this a lot. We have a very collaborative culture with us. Um, that, you know, part of this is what John is better at, but then we'll talk back and forth. And neither one of us are um, hesitant, I guess. I don't think we are anyway, of saying, yeah, you're doing it that way, but if you did it this way, wouldn't that make more sense? Like that is very collaborative, being able to have those conversations and being able to work together where he knows what's best in what we're talking about, but sometimes that fresh eyes and that being able to, dig into that um, really helps, and having that collaborative culture where, I can call them up and say, okay, how's this? And you all know I'm not a client services person. But he's taught me a lot on like how to say things. So like sometimes when I'm going through and we're setting up something for somebody, it's very easy to be able to pull that in and say, yes, but I've learned this from John. And so being able to have that collaboration back and forth is very important. It also enhances job satisfaction. Anytime that you are empowered in your job, you have a lot of satisfaction in that. It's not coming in and turning out widgets every day, and nobody cares about that. It is your true satisfaction being able to go home at the end of the day, knowing that you did your job that you own to the best of your ability. And all of that drives that innovation improvement. And it builds that trust and loyalty between your teams to be able to pull all of that stuff together. And anytime that you have staff engaged in those types of things, they need to be able to see those improvements. And, we talked about being able to know what happened after the fact, being able to know what their conversion numbers are. Not this is what we did this week. Well, how does that compare? Am I doing better? Am I doing worse? What happened to those people when they walked out of there? How many of those were converted to hired? How many fell off into the abyss after I got them into a consultation with you? Like, and why? And what can we do to help that? And all that starts to build that collaboration when really everybody has their goals and knows what they're doing going forward. So it's very important to give people those numbers so that they have the tools to provide ideas for improvements in their job. Because a lot of times you'll sit there and you think that you have done very well, but when you look back over time and you actually look at goals and goals attainment, it's not there, but you don't see that in the day-to-day life. And that leads right into the clear goals and measurable metrics. You need to know where you are to know where you want to go. We're not out here on a Sunday drive just exploring the area. We're on a road trip with a destination. And defining along with agreement on the destination is very critical to the ability to continue all of that forward motion. So setting those clear goals, having that uh, a clear direction and purpose, knowing where we're going, making sure all the team members understand that objectives and can work collaboratively, wow, toward that, is all very important. Um, their roadmap. They're really helping prioritize your task, allocate your resources, set your day to day, and really drive your process improvement. Um, you can say, oh, I have a goal for, to improve our conversions to consultations by 15%. What does that mean to people? Being able to break that down and say, we need to set 5 more consultations a week. Doing things like that to break it down and setting very clear goals so it's not some out there number that we're not really involved in. And that's all in establishing those measurable metrics, being able to have something that is measurable. You would be surprised the number of times that people have come and said to me, because I'm the reporting person, um, they've said, oh, well, we want to track this KPI. Okay, how are you recording it? Well, we're not. Well, if you're not recording it, you can't track it. Like, and so it's really important when establishing your metrics that they are measurable. It is something that you have a way to measure that. Now, you're not out there on your own in that. You can always like tell me, well, we really want to track this. But that is we don't know how to measure that. We don't know how to be able to get that information in there to track. And we'll help you out with that. That's what we're here for. And so those being able to have those measurable metrics and being able to track those is very important. And being able to look at where you're at now, along with how you've improved, is key to focusing on the improvements needing. Yes, we can look at this, and we can say, here's where we are for our 7 days. And yeah, we're doing horrible in everything but initial contact. So marketing is doing their job. They're getting people to contact us, and then we're losing them afterwards. But then you can go down, you can compare how does this compare to actually um, where we were? Like, are we continually making these improvements? Are we doing better than we were last week, or are we just bad? So really being able to do that and see both of those numbers, being able to look at that clearly, really helps everybody to be like, oh, this is terrible. We only got 16 people in the last 7 days. To sit into consultations. Like, what happened with that? Um, but if you go down and look and say, well, we actually raised our goal because our goal was this. So we are continually moving forward, and it really helps people to be able to see that. And then, of course, all that leads to continuous training and education. Ongoing training and education is very important. My favorite clients right now are the firms that are moving from very antiquated systems or even just tracking clients on spreadsheets to automated systems. That time savings alone is astronomical, and it is so awesome to be able to see that. They would have never known that was possible without exploring and seeing what was out there for training and education. Now, this doesn't mean that you sign up for every training and option out there, but good choices on training is important. And a pro tip on this is to have a team lunch once a month and everyone bring a thing they want to learn to the table. Spend the hour together just discussing first the things learned in the past month and then the options and trainings team members have found to take and learn. It may be something small and free, like watching all the Decision Vault videos so that you can improve your intake form. It may be something bigger, like learning a completely new skill or a coaching program for client services. All of these things help with the forward motion of your goals. And when you're asking your team to give that input to you, they are bought into that. They then tend to own that. So that is absolutely something that's very important. And having that monthly uh, meeting into that. So when we're talking about the importance of continuous training and education, because it's not just we stagnate and we're here, we want to continue going on. We want to build those skills and knowledge. So new legal practices, new technology, new methods, all of that stuff, and building all of those skills together, although probably not CPR. But anyway, but that could be that could be something that is important to have in there. So really knowing all of those things, and building all of those skills to help them continue on. And that then fosters this learning culture where you're constantly out there learning new things. There are people who are continual students. There are people who would absolutely love to be in a classroom the rest of their lives. And then there are people who are out there that just learn something every day. They read something every day. They want to learn something every day. And those are the people that are moving forward. The people that are like, oh, I graduated. I'm done. I don't want to learn anymore. They don't move forward and stuff starts to pass them by because everything else is moving. So continually learning and building that learning culture and sharing that back and forth, it helps to feed that in other people. And that all contributes to your continuous improvement and moving on. And while you're doing that, aligning all of that ongoing education with your firm goals. So if your firm goals, all of your training should align with those goals. If those goals are to improve your conversion rates, but you don't have an issue getting people to contact you, like you have plenty of incoming coming in the door, training on improving your marketing isn't really going to help that. Like that's not where your goal needs to be. So really being able, and that's where that like monthly meeting, training meeting, sharing meeting comes into place, is that you can help guide each other on that and say, yeah, that'd be a really cool thing to learn, but it's not going to really gain us anything. Um, it's not going to help us. It's not going to move towards our goals. So let's put that down on a later after we reach this goal, then that may be something that we need to dive into. And that leads us right into the communication. So you need to have a transparent environment with open and honest feedback. And the best way to do this is to have a dedicated portion of your weekly shareholder meeting to be focused on improvements, to go over things like status and goals met. And don't forget to go over the failures and the resets as well. Everything is a learning experience, and you need to treat them as such. So having that open communication and those feedback loops, it really helps to enhance those collaborations. If you're going into the meeting and everybody's sitting there and someone's standing up in the front saying, these are our numbers, and there's no discussion, there's no feedback, there's no collaboration on what should we be doing to improve that, why did that not work? A lot of times you'll go in there and, oh, you got a bad number. And it's a downer for everybody, and it's just a downer. Instead, you can turn that around with that open communication, that feedback to say, yes, this is what it was last week, and this is a really bad number. So what are we doing to fix this for this week? And really get that collaboration from the team to be able to do that. So sharing all of your results and your lessons learned, that really helps with that team transparency. It encourages that moving forward. It builds all that knowledge between everybody, because now I'm not just keeping this knowledge to myself. I'm sharing with the team what I'm going to do. And maybe a fresh eyes on that really helps to move that along. And it also helps people understand what I'm doing when I'm out there doing stuff. And it boosts that morale and engagement. It really helps to build that team together when you can encourage each other and you can, okay, Beth had a really bad week and her numbers are absolutely horrible. And here's what she's going to do next week. And we can all support her in that. That really boosts that morale, and it gets that engagement between the teams going, and you start having a true team to move forward. And that all sets the stage for all of your future efforts out there. So when we're measuring success and celebrating wins, like how often should we be doing that? Well, we absolutely should be doing that. Your regular tracking of KPIs, weekly. Some teams are doing it daily. Really getting in there, your real-time assessment of process improvements, making sure they're aligning with goals, seeing the numbers at least weekly to know where you're going and are you moving in the right direction. And then, of course, quarterly. And sometimes people do that monthly as well, but quarterly. So celebrating those wins quarterly, doing a quarterly retreat in your firm, that you take a day and this is what we're focusing on. Here's all of our numbers. Here's what we've done. Here's where we're moving forward. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't work. Here's what we're going to focus on. All of those really help to get everybody in that same team spirit to move forward and to get going in that same direction. And then, of course, you want to review it annually. Like I said about the stuff at the beginning of the year. And yeah, you do. You want to set your annual goals, but that shouldn't be the only time you're looking at them. A lot of times people are like, oh, yeah, we do this every year. you do it once a year, but then you fall off in April or May, or some of you last till August, but sometimes not. And that all seems to fall off. So we really want to, that should be your main strategic planning for the next year and all of that, and not the um, just here's what we're going to do. And then it falls by the wayside. Everything else should be supporting all of that. So that's how we're measuring our success and we're celebrating our wins and we're keep going on. So what about KPIs and identifying the appropriate KPIs? Because this is all very, very important. So there needs to be some smart criteria for KPIs. They should be specific. They should be measurable and recordable. You need to have a way to record those. They need to be attainable. You can't have a KPI that's out there and it's not attainable. That just discourages everybody. And sometimes you need to maybe lower that and then work up to that. They need to be relevant. It can't be some thing out there that's not going to help you and it's not going to be relevant to what that person is doing. And they also should be time bound. So you should look at being able to reach a KPI in this amount of time. Not just a random, this is our goal forever. Um, it should be, this is our goal to reach this by this time. And that is our key performance indicator. I really want, and this is an example of this, I want John in his client services role to have a 64% conversion rate to consultations. And I want that to be, to take effect by November. Okay, so that is a very specific key performance indicator. It is measurable because we have the ability to measure that. It's attainable. It is absolutely relevant to his role, and we have limited it to a time frame and really allows everyone to track the progress and success and all of that. So all of that needs to align with the practice goals because having KPIs in general doesn't do anything unless they all feed into your overall practice goals. And they need to align with those as well. Like you can't have, and I'll just stay with client services, we can't have an overall conversion rate to consultations to be 80% and all of our individual client services people are at 60%. Well, you're never going to reach that. Like you need to really do the math and make sure that they all kind of align and make sure they're all going to the objectives that you want. And that you're tracking and lining those up so that somebody can actually succeed. And then regularly reviewing those KPIs, having a way to do that. The most frustrating thing for me as an employee in places was an annual review. And the reason for that is because you didn't know how you were doing until your annual review. And then when I moved into a management role, um, it was really hard to do those. And the reason it was hard to do those is you always felt like you were judging somebody, but you didn't give them the opportunity to do anything about it in the last 12 months. Like you go in there and you say, here's what I want you to improve, and then off you go. And that was the culture when I stepped into that role. So really being able to continuously evaluate those KPIs, and that doesn't mean doing a performance review of everybody every month. That's not what it means. They need to have ownership of that as well. But being able to view the KPIs so they can actually see what that data is. I have heard of of people going, they'll set a KPI for billable hours, for example, for like a paralegal, and they want them to have 30 billable hours a week. And that person has no way, unless they're tracking it offline, to be able to look at what billable hours they put in for a week. That is unfair. That is unfair to everyone involved, and you can't do that. So being able to review and adjust the KPIs based on performance data can really help you in refining those processes, and it'll drive that continuous improvement. It'll drive everyone who has a KPI to keep going forward to be able to meet their overall goals. And that all boosts your morale. And recognition. So celebrate those wins. Absolutely celebrate those wins. Recognize and reward meeting those goals. And it only builds your team morale. It only helps people. And it also reinforces that it's important. And your culture of continuous improvement is important. I've set a continuous improvement goal for this. This is what we're doing to get there. When we reach it, it's not a mention of 2 seconds. Hey, we met our goal for this in your weekly meeting. No, it's a celebration, because that says it's more important. And being able to keep that focus on there, of boosting that morale, and recognizing things that move forward will actually drive everyone else to try to reach their goals as well. So really sustaining it is committing to your key elements, having ways to see those improvements, and keeping focused on that key element, keeping that commitment alive, and implementing those effective strategies. They focus on your identified elements into your daily operations. So setting those goals, building that training, maintaining that communication, getting all of that in there is very important. And one part of this is also being able to report and be able to see things on your report, and being able to go into a weekly meeting with numbers that matter to you. So I'm just going to bring this over. Being able to go in there, and this is an example of what you're doing in a shareholders meeting, to be able to go in and say, last week we had 81 initial contacts. Well, what were they? You can go there and say, okay, we had 81 initial contacts. What happened to them? 29 of them went to a consultation, 63 of them went to a workshop, 5 of them were in follow-up, and the rest of them, well, here's where everybody is. It didn't follow, that didn't schedule. Being able to quickly do that. And we had 36 in a workshop last week. We had 16 consultations last week. What happened to those? And I have that one set up to the wrong one. How many consultations did we schedule for going forward? Well, this is an issue. If we had 81 initial contacts and we only scheduled 2 people into consultations, that is a very glaring issue, but we can focus on that. And then how many engagements do we have last week? Looking back, seeing what's going on, and then looking forward. We have 99 people registered for a workshop this coming week. We have 10 consultations coming in. We have 5 design meetings and 28 sign meetings. Where are they at? What do we need to do with them? Here they are. Here's the drafting status of them all. So we can really use the numbers and use the data to make that an effective meeting of what you want to look through. And then being able to go into what is your upcoming out of office for the team? Who's out this week that we need to cover for? What are we doing for that? Who needs help? Being able to have a place where somebody can say, hey, I have this going on and I really need help with this. Can I pass this on to somebody else? That helps that whole team be able to be cohesive and really knit together to make things happen. And then talk about anyone is doing trainings this week. How's your trainings going? What have you learned? How are we applying that? What process changes did we make last week? Has anybody put anything in place that we need to look at? Was it successful? Was it a flop? How can we help? All of those things in there. And what process changes are we looking to make next week? Being able to pull all of that into that team meeting and have those numbers and be able to dig into it, not to get lost in the weeds, because you don't want to get lost in the weeds, but sometimes someone's curiosity is a little more than that. Also, very important is being able to, in that meeting, be able to say, and this goes back to your culture, being able to say in that meeting, yeah, we want to look at why there was only two consultations scheduled, so let's take this offline and dive into that. Because you don't need the whole team there diving into that. What was the reason for that? So being able to see all that and be also having that freedom to say we're going to take this offline is all very important. So yeah, that is the main way to be able to sustain your process improvements in your practice, being able to continue that forward momentum and not fall off the bandwagon halfway through the year and have a team that really works together. And that really is the key of being able to have a team that works together and moving forward. John, I know you have some thoughts.
How did you know that?
You always do.
I'm joking. So yeah, a couple things, and I'll just rip through these. In line with what you talked about, sustainability is also setting up for the future when you're implementing things and not just for what you need today. So
Right.
like if you see those things slipping where there's only two consultations scheduled, and you come up with a solution for it, it's not just a quick fix, but will this be long term? Yeah, implement quick fixes. That's absolutely necessary in many cases, but you have to build on that to make it long term. Even in implementing technology, if you're offering three services in your law firm, it's okay to set it up for five in automation. So when you add more, it's ready to go. Same with when you hire attorneys and new staff, making your processes and tech scalable and flexible. Um, Something that kind of came to mind is really learning your role. Um, and what came to mind was, are you a pilot or are you the runway person with the lights? The pilot is focusing on getting off the ground. The ground person sees the big picture of all the planes moving around and all the luggage carts moving around and all of that, and keeping that specific and other planes safe and efficient. They're controlling the big picture. The pilot is just trying to get that single plane off the ground. So once you really understand which role you fit into, then you'll slip right into the lane of improving um, what your role basically is allowed to improve. Next is collaboration relies on trust with who you're talking to. So yeah, you can say let's all collaborate as a team, but if you don't trust them, then it's just meaningless collaboration for many things. So do things that build trust with each other as a team. One immediate way to implement that is during your stakeholder meeting or your weekly team meeting, whatever you call it, start with wins and thank yous. Everybody go around the room, tell everybody your win for the week, no matter how big or small, and thank somebody in the room for something they did that week, whether for you or for somebody else that you noticed. It's going to start that trust building and collaboration within your firm of putting that culture. Beth, since we are a tech company, can you just briefly talk about how does your tech ecosystem play into sustaining forward motion? And even start with what a tech ecosystem is and how important that phrasing is, as we've gone through a lot of terms and we landed on this one.
Right. So the reason that we ended up with using a tech ecosystem and really and what that is describing all of your tech that works together to keep you running, to make things more efficient, to encourage that forward motion. And everybody used to, and a lot of people still do, say a tech stack. What is my tech stack? What is your preferred tech stack? To me, that never made sense. And it really drove my brain crazy because we're not stacking things. It is not a pile of things. And to me, that's what a stack is. It is a pile of stuff. So we're not continually piling on things. We are creating an ecosystem. And an ecosystem is everything that works together. So while you can just stack tech and stack tech and stack tech, if it's not helping and it's not improving things in your area and in your ecosystem, it's not helping you. And so having things that can collaborate together, like Decision Vault is a huge one. Being able to use Decision Vault and have that work with every other part of your tech ecosystem, that is like a key part of that. So you can use that. You can use it to get information to your clients. You can use it to collect information from your clients. You can use it to send information to your CRM, to your drafting software, to keeping that information. You can extract information out of that and do various other things with it. Like it is all that is really what you want your tech ecosystem to do is um to assist you and really to be each part of that should be a silent employee that is doing something for you. And if it's not, then why is it there? Um, because when you have something that is a drain on an ecosystem, it can really pull everything else down. And so having everything in there be productive and be helpful and be part of your forward motion is really makes what makes that a successful ecosystem.
Awesome. All right. Another one that kind of came up is if you can't track it, you can't improve it, or it's very difficult. Hence,
Right.
no sustainability in your implementation. You can implement all you want, but if you can't quantify it, you have no way to see if it's working or not. So always consider that when you're implementing new things, move to the sustain part, and that is being able to quantify it.
And I'd like to add one more thing there, John. Don't set your goals until you know where you're at.
Hmm.
And really know where you're at with the means that you're going to use to track it. And we've seen this a couple times where somebody else says, "Oh, I want this to be my goal," and then we're like, "Okay, let's get your numbers around that." So you can actually track that, and we get the numbers around that, and they are so far off from what they thought they were that it is crushing. Like they're like, well, we need to reevaluate everything because we didn't even know that. And so really the first part of that is don't set your goal of what you want that goal to be until you know where you're at. Because that can really do some damage to your team and to your psyche um, when you realize that the numbers aren't what you thought they were.
Yep, absolutely. I love that. This next part that I kind of jotted down kind of all plays into each other, so it'll go pretty quick. Um, Continuing education, doctors, lawyers, they all have to do it. I'm not saying that there should be bar requirements for team to have continuing education as well, but the managers, attorneys, director of operations should care enough about their team that it becomes required within the firm. Managers can buy a subscription to a training platform online that maybe has tons of topics. Beth has one she uses that just has tons of topics, and she'll buy a specific training program like for how to use this software or this or a topic. Um, and then maybe let people pick one a month or a quarter that they want to learn and they can go through that. Maybe you want to learn about AI. That is where everything is heading. So watch a paid training seminar on that. That's maybe five videos or classes. If you teach workshops, start attending a Toastmasters local class. If you're a client services, take some classes on professional customer service that drives conversions. I know that there's a couple hotels in Vegas that actually have training programs that you can go buy some of their classes because they are the master of customer service. So look at your role and then look outside of it and train on that. If you're in Molly's law firm admin boot camp, kudos to you for taking that initiative and your firm taking the initiative to get that membership so you can learn, stretch, and grow. Even watching people work. Beth, how often do I ask you to build an automation for me? Because it's really complex. And I want you to do it on Zoom so I can watch you. Didn't we do that this week with some task automations?
Yeah. Yep. We do that quite a lot.
And then I just learn how she's doing it. So not only can I answer clients' questions better, but I can handle some of the more complex automation builds. We love when people ask us about software that they saw on Facebook or TikTok or whatever, and our thoughts on it. They want to learn. They're open to hearing the pros and cons. That's awesome. Run stuff by us. It's our job to learn these softwares and see how they contribute to success in modern law firms. That is sustaining, continuing to grow, seeing what's out there that can support your team better or support your own role better. It's okay to look for things for your own role and bring it up in a team meeting and see what people think. Call us, see what we think, because we may have had an experience and say, that is amazing, or don't touch that with a 10-foot pole. And then lastly, reviewing things at stakeholder meeting every week catches things before they slip and become a habit. That is supporting sustainability and forward motion. If you catch it quick, then it won't slip. If you only look at it every other quarter or once a year, it could have already just absolutely dissolved. All right, real quick, Beth, before we go into open Q&A, will you just talk about what we are doing in September with the fall kickoff and the theme and how important it is to be there for that?
Okay, so in September we are kicking it off the first week. We are going through a complete walkthrough of our PCM, and that is a prospective client management. And not just look at it, here's how it works, but why some of those things are in there, why the follow-ups are set up the way they are, why we're tracking certain things, and really diving through what that PCM process is on um, in practice in a firm and what that whole build out does for you. And then we are going into our two add-ons to that as well, which is our clients surveys and our, which is at the end, and all the reporting and stuff around that, how easy that is for you, and our maintenance program and our automated maintenance program. So we're going in a deep dive into each of those and what they do and how they can help you and become a silent employee in your firm to take care of all that stuff for you. And then we're going to go through the report as well and walking through the report and all of the information that's in the report. And we do that with each of our teams, but we really want to do that on a bigger level. Even if you don't have our report, we really want to dive through that and talk about the metrics and all the information and what you really should be looking at, even if you don't have our system.
Awesome. So yeah, we're really delving into the tech supporting the modern law firm. If you're struggling with your intake, I'm going to say you just have to be there to see what an efficient intake can look like and letting your practice management system do the heavy lifting so you can do what you do. Let a robot do what a robot can do and a human do what only a human can do. And again, I want to emphasize that is not to eliminate jobs. It is to enhance the human side of a law firm. All right. I think I'm going to stop the recording and we will go into open Q&A.